everyone, and welcome to the Jam Yearbook. I'm Matt.
And I'm Jim. Welcome to Shoulda, Woulda, Coulda. Did I say that? I kept thinking, is it shoulda, woulda, coulda, woulda, shoulda?
Shoulda, coulda, woulda. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't
However
know.
you want to
Yeah,
say it. However it flows off the tongue.
I had shoulda, woulda, coulda. This episode, we're going to talk about the past 6 months of covering new music on the Jam Yearbook. Music that we would have covered if we were late finding it. Music that we could have talked about that didn't pique our interest, but maybe it would yours. And music that we meant to talk about, so we should have, but somehow it escaped the monthly wrap up episodes, and it's going to be here on this episode for everybody.
Yeah, everyone, including us, thought we were done with the cleanup episodes, but we are not.
Yeah.
These are usually funny. It's a place for us to catch up all our dirty laundry.
It's a little more difficult, I think, when you're covering an entire year. When we were doing the years of our lives, we more often forgot about something because we were listening to so much from a certain year, and we talked to each other a week or two later and like, oh, I totally forgot I'd found that and I wanted to talk about it during the show. But now our lives have completely changed. If a song comes and goes within a month, we're screwed. I spend most of my days now listening to the radio. I'll hear something that catches my attention, whip up the phone, Shazam it, and find out that it was released 2 or 3 months ago.
Yeah, all
A
the time.
lot of the really fresh finds are going to take a little while for the wind to catch the sails.
I also think we made it a little too hard on ourselves. And I'm also, well, I'll speak for myself. And it really talks to how I usually approach things. When it's new, anything is new, I'll dive in, I'll obsess. That's, if I have free time, that's what I'm doing other than any other little hobby I have. I think I finally got to the point where I'm letting the music come to me and I'm not hunting for it all the time. And I'm finding that it's less stressful and it's easier to be surprised. And I'm more open to having that surprise.
But let's start talking about the music.
Oh, so we should start out with the shoulda, bands that we didn't say enough about. And I'm going to start with Ghost Club. This drives home what I was talking about. We share a playlist every month and we're both adding songs left and right. Sometimes that thing gets pretty big. And even within, like 40, 50 songs or even 30, it's easy for something to just go by you.
Yep. Yeah.
And I think it was you who added the song I'm Sold. I liked it a lot,
Yes.
but I moved on from it too quick. It's like sometimes you're passively listening, you're cooking, you're cleaning, you're doing something, and it doesn't really set in on you. That song ended up on the playlist for today's show, and I was listening to it, I don't know, 3-4 days ago, and I acted like I'd never heard it before. And then I kind of went back to a couple of our playlists. I'm like, oh shit, Jim did put it here. I kept listening and I checked out the album, King Whatever. What I got was more I wanted from the Bleachers. Was it Modern Girl? We got this really throwback 80s-ish kind of rock with a saxophone. And I got more of that from this album, and I was really happy. The sax falls away in the latter part of the album. It kind of hits heavy in the beginning of it. But man, that's what makes it hit the mark. When it's there and it goes away and it comes back. And the pacing and energy are very consistent all the way through this whole album. There's not that intentional money grab ballad.
Oh yeah, no, there isn't. Yeah.
Not the hairband thing. Since we switched to looking for new music, I found a bunch of shit I really like, but it finally hit home. I think I actually did talk quite a bit about Frank Turner in the last episode, but I almost missed him completely. Because there was the one song, Girl from the Record Shop. And then for some reason, I just, instead of going to our playlist one day, I went to his album and I hit it. And then the album just kept playing afterwards. And I'm like, holy crap, I almost wrote this off because while Girl from the Record Shop is a really good song, I liked it a lot, but there's so much more depth and content on that album that to me, every song was a payoff.
I owe it to you for putting a second song onto the playlist because I think I put Girl in the Record Shop on first, and then you add another song later on, and it brought me back to listen to the whole album because I probably wouldn't have listened to the whole thing. And yeah, I'm really glad that I did. And yeah, definitely I did bring the Ghost Club I told the story in the episode where we talked about the band where I discovered them on Reddit because they were looking for help
Yep.
on one of their music videos,
Hmm.
and they wound up getting a million hits on Spotify from getting good engagement by doing that, promotional or not. One of the bands that I kind of feel like I regretted not getting more into was The Last Dinner Party. It's a band from over here in the UK. You asked me if they were overplayed here when they first came onto the scene or when this album was really hitting it back in January, February. And I do think they got just the right amount of exposure because listening to radio every day, I've never gotten sick of hearing them. Their lyrics and musical compositions have something that really makes me wonder if they're kind of legends in the making.
I hope they are, because I don't want this to just be a one-off success, because they're fantastic.
They've got really cool instrumentation
Oh,
and they
yes.
use it really well.
I was really happy when I heard him on the radio over here. I don't really listen to a lot of radio because a lot of it's just the same shit over and over. But it was nice to hear it because, for one, it was a new song and I recognized it. So
Yep.
I didn't feel too old.
Yeah.
I was glad that music I liked and found independently of what was being on the radio was on the radio. It's kind of like a validation thing, I guess.
And then something kind of funny's happened over the course of doing this show with you. I seem to be the guy that's leaning on the indie stuff.
You are.
More than once, I've sent you a message or sent a song off to you thinking, oh, this is really cool. This is great. I love it. And you send me back a message like, yeah, I listened to that back in 2012.
Yeah.
I was listening to that band 10 years ago. And I found this song by a band called The Decemberists called Burial Ground. And it's an earworm. It got stuck in my head. I couldn't stop singing it all the time, humming it to myself, happy when it came around on the radio. The chorus of this song kind of reminds me of a Celtic folk song.
Hmm.
It
Yeah, I can hear
almost
that.
it begs for the chorus to be around.
Oh, yeah. I don't know what you're hearing, and I don't mean this to be centered on the Decemberists, but what drew me to these bands, and I probably explained this a year or so ago, when I was getting into these indie bands, it reminded me of the variety that I had in the 80s, or at least the sounds that I had in the 80s. I should take that back, because it doesn't sound like 80s music, but the bands I was hearing on the charts, like what was considered pop music when we were growing up,
Mhm.
that that era of indie music reminded me of what I was getting when I was younger. There was like just real instruments, it wasn't just a guitar or bass and somebody singing and somebody playing drums. They would throw in an accordion. They would throw in a triangle. They would throw in off, just great instrumentation.
I think what drew me though was that old Irish folk song Rattling Bog kind of thing going on. The feel to the chorus. I don't know if you ever sang Rattling Bog in school,
No.
but oh, I grew up singing it in school, and it's a very well-known Irish folk song. But just yesterday, I had the radio on and they announced the new song from the Decemberists was coming up. So I was excited, and then the style was different. It had changed, and it was more along the lines of a 30s or 40s pop radio song, which is still cool in its own way, but it fit more into that sound that we've heard from a lot of the other indie bands that you've brought, to light, or the stuff that I've discovered. It didn't have that same freshness to me. So I was a little disappointed that it wasn't what I was anticipating.
And back to Burial Ground, I think it's that tambourine that gives it that different feel that's in the song, because it almost sounds like a Lost Beach Boys song when it gets going. It kind of made me think of Sloop John B a little bit, as it kind of just gave me that
Mm.
bouncy-ish kind of feeling. But the rest of the album really fits in with their older stuff. Unbelievably, they're a middle-aged band. They've been around since the early 2000s. They've been around for a long time. They debuted the same year the Avett Brothers did, and they've been around forever. But this is their first album in 6 years. And I'm sure COVID probably had a hand in why there was such a delay. I went in thinking or hoping that there would be a little bit of a different sound. So I was kind of, in a way, disappointed. But then when I kept listening and I settled in, and I'm like, no, I'm glad they didn't change. But if you go back and listen to any of their older albums, you're going to find that songs stand on their own. There's not a lot of repetition. song to song within an album. And you'll find that here. They revisit and everything's got a kind of a more of a broody, darker tone to all their music. So it kind of fits in. And Colin Malloy's voice. I mean, it's unmistakable.
Yeah, it's really good. But I really like that Beach Boys comparison. I think that might be what drew me to the song because I'm a huge Brian Wilson guy, and he was a master at composing those types of rounds and harmonies within the vocals. And I think that Burial Ground really brings it close to that sound. So cool. Another band that I'm going to bring up is also from the 2000s, but very different than the indie stuff. It was more on the pop side, and that's Snow Patrol. They're kind of past their prime. I think they're done putting out really kind of big hit songs, but they still play good size arenas over here. They headline festivals. They're well loved in the UK. They of course had their huge ballads in the aughts with Run and Chasing Cars. And this song kind of goes back to that. I always kind of respected Snow Patrol's songwriting, even if people think they kind of fit too much into that Coldplay, Radiohead, U2 kind of soundscape. I like the lyrics that come out of this band. And I was really impressed listening to it that the song is the beginning. They fit the word unequivocally into it. And I like how it goes into the chorus. It's one of those you're singing along, like you actually find yourself unequivocally singing to it, and it works.
And now and it's probably easier to sing it that way instead of just saying it.
It is. Oh, definitely. Trust me. They're claimed by Ireland, but they have a special place in the heart of people who have ever lived in Dundee, like myself, because they grouped together as Dundee University students. I recorded in a studio one time over here, and the producer in the studio told me that when they were up and coming and going to Dundee University, he used to drive them around in his van, and they would borrow his van to lug their gear back and forth.
Yeah, when you know that there was at least some kind of a struggle, because I've been a little challenged with Snow Patrol and bands like I'm gonna puke when I say this, Imagine Dragons, Coldplay. It's because when you hear them on the radio, they don't have a sound like they were ever in a small club.
But they did. They came out of yeah.
To me, yeah. And that's where I have to remember how things can change when you're in a studio.
Yeah.
And they can come out differently than what a demo sounded like or a rough cut of an early song.
I think sometimes when something sounds too shiny and pretty, we're going to want to assume something paid for it. We want to believe deep down inside that a band like I don't know, like Pissed Jeans or any of these punk bands that we've been talking about recently. Oh, anything that's punk had to have come from somebody's
That's right.
basement somewhere where,
Anything that sounds edgy.
yeah, but if it sounds pretty and polished, then it must be a bunch of rich kids. And
Exactly.
I don't think that's the case. But speaking of kind of edgy at the time when they were coming up, Cage the Elephant. They had a new album that we both shared songs onto our monthly playlist with each other off of, and we never talked about them. What's going on with that? It was a good album.
You know why I haven't brought them up? I kind of avoided it for the show. Again, it's me hunting for the unknown makes me miss the mark. I don't see the forest through the trees sometimes. And sometimes I have that side eye still for something that gets too big, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, because I want to bring something new. And sometimes maybe it's at the expense of finding that something that or bringing something to the show that people actually like and listen to. If something's good, it really shouldn't matter who it's from. KG Elephant has been remarkably consistent. They've had enough albums out now where, another part of my avoidance was, I'm always expecting them to have that maturation. And that's code for when a band loses what makes them special. And you are
Mm-hmm.
100% correct. This album rocks. They're never generic or cliche. And yes, shame on me for kind of giving them that side eye because they don't deserve it. They're a damn good band.
Yeah, they're good. And something else I found along the way, and just the one song really. I didn't go back and listen to the whole album. Maybe you did, but I found this band, Dirty Nice, and they had a song called Best Friends. This is going to go on the playlist. Everybody should go listen to it. It's so good. Matt, can this be our new theme song?
Oh,
This was
please.
April when we missed this, and I love the quirky simplicity of the
Yeah,
song.
God damn, you're funny. That's it's such a great song. This is a new wave classic for me. So I didn't think you were gonna like this song at all, or I would have pushed for it because I found it and I'm like, it might just be a little too quirky because I was trying to tighten up the ship a little bit on my end.
I
I
got
was
that.
so
Yeah.
happy where you when you added it. You know I love quirky shit. And this is the perfect song to break me out of a rut. You don't listen to quirky songs 24 hours a day, right? You listen to one in every 30 or so just to break up the rut, break up the routine. And this is awesome. Dirty Nice. I love this
Yeah,
song.
it's awesome.
So I'm going to move us on to the Woulda part. What we really would have done is hated more on Chris Young if we had more time. That is all. Don't do Bowie dirty like that. That was awful.
If anybody forgets what we're talking about, he took Rebel Rebel and turned it into his own song. And yeah, Bowie got a credit writing on it and everything. I'm sure everybody made a little bit of money, which is fine, but I think I think it's a roll in his grave moment for
Yeah.
Bowie with what happened
Yeah.
there. But then I have to ask you, Shabuzi, what the fuck is this?
Oh,
Shabuzi.
okay. This is more country than Beyonce. That's what the fuck it is, and I'm here for it.
Okay.
100%.
Okay. Okay.
I had to do a quick listen because you put it in the notes, and I'm like, what the hell is this? It still slipped by me. When was this out? March or April or something? And this is the
Yeah.
first time
Yeah. I
I
think
I
that's
had ever
right.
even heard that name. And you think you would have heard that name. Um, because I don't remember seeing any of our playlists either. And based on the name, I did not want to like it at all. I prejudged that hard. He should do a tour of Biba Doobie, you know,
Oh, there you go.
and like the tour posters, they could have like the Batman word balloons, like bam, boom, Shabuzi, Biba Doobie. Just uh,
Hey, interesting little fact
yep.
today, as we were recording this episode, it was 35 years ago that we went and saw the Michael Keaton premiere of Batman in 1989.
Wow.
35 years ago today. Rode around in the back of your brother Mark's truck singing na 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 Batman.
Batman. Oh, yeah, that was a fun time. I bet.
Yes.
And looking back, it's like, boy, we really made a big deal of that.
It was like a holiday to
It
us.
really was.
We made a really big deal to go
And
see
of
Batman.
all the Star Wars or Marvel movies, well, I was a little too old for Marvel movies to make a big deal of, but I never even went to a Star Wars movie with this much excitement.
I can't say the same, but I can say that this was before you could buy tickets online, you could pre-book
True.
anything. And I think we showed up at that cinema at about 1 o'clock in the afternoon
Hours.
just to make sure,
And
yeah,
it was
we
damn
were there.
hot.
It was hot. There was nobody there. Nobody was outside. We thought there was going to be lines a mile long to go
Yep.
see Batman.
Yep.
And
Well,
so
we
that's
weren't
why
giving
we
up our
just,
spot.
no, we weren't. And I remember we sat next to the guy who did the ABC Channel 22
Yeah.
weekend review of movies. He
Yep.
sat in the same row as us watching it. And I got to go home when we got back that night because we watched the early show and I was home by 11 and I watched his review of Batman that evening. And he liked it. We all liked it. Yeah, yeah.
And I remember that was probably the first movie that I remember ever it registering with me the huge crowd reaction when I don't know what the hell he called it, the bat jet or whatever went and did the silhouette up against the moon,
Yeah, yeah,
and the
yeah.
theater went absolutely nuts. I'm like,
Yeah, yep.
wow, this is actually kind of cool when this happens.
It was cool. 35 years ago today. And now let's get back to the music. And Shabuzi.
Music.
I should have given Shabuzi more than one song. But you know when one song turns you off so much you protest giving everything else a chance?
Oh yeah. Who are you talking to?
Yeah, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Jaquan released Everybody in the Club Getting Tipsy, or it was Tipsy, in 2009. My guess is that this flew completely under your radar in 2009.
Hmm.
It was kind of pre your boys listening to music and you were
Yeah.
in your indie phase.
Well, the first
This,
song when I went to listen to this, that was the first song that popped up, and I was like, "Well, this is
oh,
shit."
okay.
And then I went to the album. I'm
Yeah.
like, "Oh, wait a second, that was a remix or something."
Well, the 2009 version, of that song, the original version, annoyed the shit out of
Yep.
me. And when I heard a hip hop country remake, but now we're at the bar getting tipsy because them city clubs are too fancy for our country folk. I had that angry steam coming out of my ears reaction to it. And the other thing I need to realize, and something I'm trying to come to grips with, is just like all music has progressed one way or the other, be it rock music, hip hop, how we've had to wrap our ears around different sonic changes. There is something that's come into there is hip hop, urban country music that's progressing and growing,
Yeah.
and it's a very new sound for me, especially over here in the UK. You might get a little more exposure over there in the US to it because I'm sure it's more prominent on the radio. Country music itself is not big here. So when I hear a country rap song,
Mhm.
I want to throw my beer at the wall and put on some George Jones still. I'm in that place.
There's a lot of
But
spoken word in some of those old songs,
it,
man.
and there is, you're right. Some of it's very creepy. So I'd
Oh
be better
yeah,
off. Hello, darling.
yeah.
Uh,
Nice to see you. It's
yeah. All
been
right.
a
A
long
long time.
time.
All right. So I've got to ask you, the one album I expected to hear you do nothing but rave about, but it did not happen, was Local Natives' new album.
Oh yeah, that's right. I think I remember I said I wanted to give it more time because there was only a single out. I wanted to hear the whole album before I passed judgment because they had a song called April and I liked it. And I was like, oh, okay, all right. But I also know my reaction to the last few albums that they've done. There's always been like really good songs, but not a complete package for what I wanted. And I'm sorry, I know not everybody cares about albums. That's how I'm wired. And I know there are other people out there that are wired like me, right? They just want albums. Because their debut, Gorilla Manor, is something that I listen to a lot. So that's my measuring stick. It's not that their newer albums were bad. I could probably take songs from all of their subsequent releases and come up with a couple more albums I would love. They just haven't been as consistent.
That makes sense.
And Jim, you had a little episode, or not an episode, you had an adventure lately. You went to see 311.
I did. I did. Now we can't talk about their new release until the June wrap up, but let's talk about some live music,
Yeah.
and what shows what we could have seen. I went and saw 311 a couple weeks ago, and it's one of those moments where foolishly I'll say something like it was the best concert that I've ever been to. There's nothing cooler than seeing a band you've admired for a really long time and always had to see from afar. I've always seen 311 in places that fit, a few thousand people at least. And then to go and see them in a club in London a couple weeks ago that fit 850 people, I was probably about 5 to 8 rows back from the stage, not getting knocked over. It's a bunch of old people now. We weren't all crushing each other. They still had the same exact energy on stage, musicianship, everything was there. Nothing missed a beat 25 years later. Just so cool to see them. But Matt, I mean, what have I gotten to see when it comes to this past year? So I've had 311.
Yeah,
You must be jealous of how
I
like
am.
high fade. High fade was incredible. I didn't put in the notes D Wolf, but D Wolf was still one of the coolest things I've ever gone to. I watched them do a finale of a song that took 22 minutes. And every time they play that song at the end of the show, it changes. And sometimes it can be
Nice.
longer. Yeah. Go look up the song Rosita by DeWolf. And it's just absolutely epic, amazing. Um, I got to see Rick Astley after all of our talk
Yeah.
about Rick Astley and his new
I
album
forgot
last
how
year.
much we were raving
Yeah.
about him.
Yeah. And then when I was 14 to 15 years old, maybe 13, one of my biggest crushes in music was Belinda Carlisle, and she opened
Yep.
for him. She was absolutely amazing, and getting to hear her sing her songs. Unfortunately, she did not do any go-go songs when I went to see her at this show, which kind of bummed me out because I wanted to see her sing some go-go songs, but it was still Belinda, so I was happy. But Matt, tell me what you missed because you seem to notice what's come through town after the fact.
Yes, I have because for one, I don't pay attention and I'm jealous of you in more than one way because man, sometimes I'm more jealous of like, man, I don't have the energy to go to that. I don't
I'll be honest with you, it's something that I've got to push myself to do,
Yep.
but it pays off. It always
Yeah.
pays off.
Yeah, because I haven't seen a band I think the last band I saw live was Bare Naked Ladies, like maybe 5 years ago.
Oh boy.
Yeah, it was a long time ago. But I've been paying attention in the last, month or so, and I'm always like a day late, a dollar short. It's like I missed Charlie Crockett. He was sold out by the time I realized he was here. Rainbow Kitten Surprise is playing, I think, next week. But
Oh wow.
yeah, Mannequin
Yeah.
Pussy. Spoon's gonna be here locally. Noah Khan, he's gonna be playing at the fairgrounds.
How can you miss Spoon?
I don't because I don't pay attention. I get so wrapped up in what I'm doing. And High Fade was here in Burlington, but
Yeah.
I had something that I had to do and I couldn't go. And I'm like, God damn, this would have been so awesome to go see them at I think it was at Nectar's or Higher Ground or something. It was a perfect place to go see a band like that.
Hey Jim, you know this great band Spoon? They're awesome.
Yeah.
Really, Matt? They're gonna play 10 minutes from your house. Yeah, they're not that good.
Yeah.
I'm not going.
Exactly. Well, part of it is because I don't know anybody else that knows the band.
Yeah,
Right. And I don't want to
I
drag
got you.
anybody to a show that I'm like, they may like it, but they may be
Uh-huh.
like not in love with it. I don't know if I would have spent $50 to go see this, but
That's when you grab one of your boys and you'll be like, you're just gonna
yeah.
keep me company,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah. You make sure I don't do something stupid. How about
Yeah.
that? Or even, and this takes a little bit more of a commitment, because Montreal is, like an hour and 45 minutes or so here. I'm sure Talk was playing in Montreal within the last 6 months, and the
Oh.
beaches even, and they're going to be in Glasgow in September.
Oh, really?
That took a minute to register with you.
I did not know this. I am going to have to go take a look, see where they're playing, and see if, yeah, September's great. I've got a lot of time off in September.
Yeah,
Uh, I will go see a band we like, Matt, report back to you
I
how
like that.
incredibly great they were.
Go meet the band.
Oh, well, I don't know if I'll get to do that. They're a little bigger than getting to meet
Well,
beaches.
not with that attitude, you won't. That's for sure. All right, let's move on to the coulda. These are the bands that release music that might interest you, right? But you're not getting a recommendation from us. That's for sure.
Oh, most of this is classic rock music. We enjoyed some Judas Priest and Ace Frehley, but I couldn't, in good conscience, tell you to go check out the new Blue Oyster Cult. How many of these classic, yes, I'm doing air quotes here, bands only consist of one or two of the original members, and usually it's the bass player who's just out there with the name.
We are incredibly loyal, Jim.
Yes.
And I would second that Blue Oyster Cult thing. And this sounds like we're getting back into that they're still around section we do when we recap new music every month. That section of the show has released a lot of WTF moments for us. It's not making the cut for June, but Little River Band has a new song out there. And it should make the show based on the song because it's a really good, actually kind of a country song. But what else are we going to say about Little River Band? I got to see him live once at the New York State Fair,
Oh, hey, there you
in
go.
the late 90s by accident, but if I was going to say anything more about them, we'd probably just end up singing Lonesome Loser.
Something that's not classic rock, then Kings of Leon. We didn't speak about them. We've talked about bands having a sound that we're initially really attracted to, but after a few albums, that sound gets overplayed. Personally, I lose a craving to continue to listen sometimes. And this happened for me with Kings of Leon. I really liked their first couple of albums that came out, and the radio was just raving about how this was just such a great rocking comeback for them. And I was just kind of like, what are you talking about? I'm not hearing the same thing you guys are.
Okay, so I think I brought this term up earlier in the show, middle-aged bands. And
Yeah.
they've been around for 20 years now. That's a middle-aged band. And middle-aged bands are in a tight spot. Kings of Leon are still putting out albums regularly that somehow you've already heard without even hearing them. Another thing is there was a big deal made about the Rolling Stones new album for like a day, and then people moved on. I
That's
mean,
true. Yeah.
that's how long it took. That's how long the Rolling Stones moved the needle. You expect Kings of Leon to do that? There's an impossible amount of content out there. So you gotta, and I don't want Kings of Leon to like dramatically change what they do, but they got to do something to move the needle because I'm not getting anything out of them that I haven't already heard. And this band seems to have always been riding this wave of people saying incredible things about them. Before they broke here, I think they broke in the UK first. What was that song? Sex is on Fire, right? That kind of
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
like broke them in the States. I remember reading articles, this little 4 paragraph things in the back of Rolling Stone. Watch this band. This is great. This is great. And then all of a sudden they kind of broke through with that album. And then ever since it's been like just the same thing over and over. But really, even when it got to that album, it was still the same thing over and over.
It's never had that same energy though.
No,
Yeah.
I,
So
I would agree.
has
They I don't know if their songwriting has matured, but definitely the production and the sound has matured.
it has. Yeah. Yeah. What about the Avett Brothers then? You brought them up earlier in the show.
Oh, yeah, speak of the devil.
They had a release this year and we never really talked about it. Is that the same that's happened for them?
Yeah, and I've never, again, same with Kings of Leon. I've never really disliked anything they've done. But again, if you're going in with that mindset, are you really going to give it a fair shake? Are you going to give it a full listen? Are you just going to put it on while you're cleaning the car when you can half hear it at best? And this David Brothers album, it's a really good album. I have no problems with it. I guarantee this is going to be a slow burn for me. One day I'm going to be in the mood for the Avett Brothers, right? And I'm going to listen to somebody's playlist of just a bunch of Avett Brothers stuff. And this album's going to autoplay and I'm going to finally pay attention because it's good stuff. But I'm just kind of locked into that mode of move the needle for me, excite me, give me something new, something different that I haven't heard before. And shame on me. I know that's not, that's just me.
One of the most classic bands in our lifetime has been releasing new music over the past couple of months, and we've skipped right past it. I did listen, but it definitely wasn't something that brought me back. I think maybe due to voice fatigue and the not sound necessarily. And that's Bon Jovi, John Bon Jovi, almost out of sadness and not hearing him sound like he did when he was younger. That's part of the difficulty of listening to it now. But I'm sure the super fans out there will always enjoy him and give him credit for what he's doing. I lost touch with them in after what 1988. That was New Jersey period.
Mm.
And well, it's not 100% true. Actually, now that I think about it, because I did like his Young Guns soundtrack songs. Blaze of Glory was like a sequel to Wanted Dead or Alive to me. I really like that. I was working at the movie theater in Newport
Oh,
when
yep.
that came out, and I would clean up the cinema after a movie finished, and you're sweeping up popcorn and picking up garbage, but that was the soundtrack. It was cool when the good songs were playing. You
Shot
enjoyed that.
down.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was after New Jersey.
I
Wow.
do
I'm
believe
just
so.
my inner timeline is like
Yeah, I
on a
think I think
tether
Young
right
Guns
now.
came out 1989,
Okay.
1990, somewhere in there. But I didn't get Keep the Faith. That didn't make any
No.
sense to me. I wasn't into that. And I can understand what they mean to so many people. I mean, how many girls that we went to high school with had John Bon Jovi hair. So they, he absolutely meant the world and his music to so many people. I remember when we were in high school, Bon Jovi would be playing up in Montreal at the Forum, and there'd be carloads of our friends just headed up there to go see
Yeah,
Bon Jovi play.
guilty.
It
I
was a
did.
Yeah, it was a big deal. But I couldn't carry the torch through the 90s. I had to stop.
No, I didn't need I want to say any, but I'll back off the edge and say I didn't need most Bon Jovi after Slippery When Wet. And this is where I'm weird. One way. Trust me, I know there's plenty more. I can be fiercely loyal to a band, but I don't give every band the same leeway, especially a band like Bon Jovi. They got huge. They don't need my support. There's plenty of that lying around. It was hard for me to give local natives a bad review, and I don't think I was harsh at all, but I could have been. I held back a lot. I'll say that Venom for a band like Bon Jovi, because any band that's born out of the hair band movement, immediately my first thought is there's a surface thing. It's like shallow. It's a pretty shallow genre of music because it was so reliant on image.
Yeah. Yeah, I got that.
And I agree with you. Yeah, but even on Keep the Faith, I could hear a change in his voice because,
Hmm.
I mean, that dude's saying balls out for a long time. That takes its toll
Yeah,
on
and it did with
on a
him.
vocalist. If I remember, they've dipped in and out of country here or there.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
it feels like they're trying to be that band. They just can say, "Oh, this is what we want to do," and that's great. That's awesome. But for me, it leads to an identity crisis.
We're not going to deliver anything new about Bon Jovi with our demographic, our age group.
That's the
It,
thing.
we talk about Taylor Swift because we're the old dudes who used to turn our heads completely 180 degrees around the other way whenever we saw her coming.
Yeah,
And then eventually, the show forced us to stop and listen for a minute.
yeah.
And we went, oh, okay, well,
But it was
it's not for us, but it's not
Yeah, but it's
bad.
also important to note that we may not look back at it until another 10 years, but we're living through her like Michael Jackson Beatles moment.
Elvis, yeah,
Elvis,
that's what's happening right now. It is.
right? And it may not feel
Yep.
it to people our age because we're old. We're not old, but we're set in our ways.
Music is all kind of speculative to how we're going to accept it and take it into our lives. And to bring this all around, Matt and I have had a few conversations over the past couple of days about how the show has really gotten sidetracked from the original theme of the Jam Yearbook. The way the show started was really seeped in nostalgia, and that has been taken away from the listening audience. So you now are invited to listen to Matt and I talk to each other about what we're going to do to revamp the show and bring you something new when we wrap up June, because you've just gotten 6 months of new music from us. And I think we're kind of done doing that in a long show format. And we're going to go back to some nostalgia. Matt, do you think that's what we're going to do?
I wholeheartedly agree because it's more fun.
Yeah, it is more
It
fun.
is more. I mean, hey, pull back the curtain. We know the demographic of the show, right? And there are times, Jim, how many times do you wake up on a Friday? Oh, I got to listen to my new release radar. Let me check out the new pop music. Let me check out the new this list, this list, this list. It just feels like it's become a little bit dogmatic, a little bit
Yeah.
robotic, a little bit like, I don't want to say a job because it's still fun, but at the same time, it just feels like we're going through the paces. With nostalgia, we feel like we can give each other shit about certain things. We feel like we can have a little bit more fun.
We can. And I think we fell into this direction because we got really excited about some new music over the past few years. There's a lot of great new stuff that we found and stuff that we're going to take with us. But one of the issues that we've both agreed with over the past 6 months is that we don't have time to hang on to anything or go back and listen to music that we really kind of enjoy because we're always just trying to find something new to listen to. We put that playlist together, and then I find myself listening to it once or twice, putting notes down for the show so we can talk about what we liked and what we didn't. And then that playlist just goes off into the ether somewhere,
Yeah.
and I never listen to that music again.
Yeah. We don't have time to savor.
No, but I'm also not listening to older music as much as I used to like to. And that was one of the fun parts about doing the years of our lives because we could dig back into a certain year. And, some years were easier, some were harder. And when it comes to new music, when we started getting towards 2018, 2019, 2020, we noticed, wait a minute, there's a trend, music's getting cool, and we are continuing on now into 2024. And I'm just going to bring up the point that we had 1991 with Nirvana, Alice in Chains, Pearl Jam, Red Hot Chili Peppers, Metallica's Black Album. 1991, people talk about how grand that year was. And a lot of albums over the next few years: Siamese Dream, Weezer, Blue Album, Stone Temple Pilots, Purple. All this great music came along. So did Hootie and the Blowfish. And I would have friends that I'd be hanging around with, and they'd be like, "Hey, man, you want to come over? Let's put on some, Soundgarden. Let's put on some Weezer. Let's put on some Nirvana. Hey, man, you want to listen to Hootie and the Blowfish?"
Don't bring a fucking Bigfoot into my house, Gus.
We might be now in the Hootie and the Blowfish time of, what we were looking at over the past couple of years, or 4 or 5 years of music, and as it progressed and came along. So there are still good bands and there's good music coming along, but we're almost behind the curve. We would have been better doing this 5 years ago and exploring new music, but we didn't know what was happening at the time.
Again, back to the demographics. I think we've neglected what people were tuning into from the beginning. And so we're just going to do a little bit of course correction with that. I'll admit, I had more fun when I was going through those years because even though we were being nostalgic, we still found new things every time we were
Yeah.
going through the years of our lives.
Yeah, we
right?
did. We did.
And I do kind of miss that nostalgia bump. And I'm sure people listening to us, kind of miss that as well.
And you're right. We did neglect the audience because when we were running the show before, we had the audience poll that came out with every episode where people could vote on what their favorite songs were. We would get up to 100 votes per episode for songs to be added to the playlist. We made a playlist that's over 1,000 songs long that was made by you, by me, and by the audience. And that was a really cool, inclusive experience for people that were listening to the show. I said to you once, I would love to have been in a band that was only playing to 20 to 30 people a night. That'd be fine by me. Back in the day, playing music, I was lucky to get 3 to 5 of my friends to show up to a show. And I don't want this to wind up going back to that.
No.
We got 20 to 30 of our friends coming around and listening previously.
Exactly.
We got to find a way to fish them all back in. And I do believe it's because we're not talking about anything that people can relate to that are in our age demographic anymore.
Those polls were a good tool for us to read the temperature of the room, read the direction of how we should be guiding the show.
And I can completely relate to people that, look, I get it. If you want to believe there's not much new good music coming out anymore, it's hard to find. And I can respect that. I think it's a little arrogant on our part to be like, well, we're going to go find it for you and come back and tell you to go listen to this.
We're the hunter gatherers. Yes, that is what we're doing. Yeah, because I get it. I listen to other podcasts and people recommend this, and rarely do I go and check it out. This can't be homework. This just has to flow and feel natural.
And we need to find a way to invite people back into this safe space that we originally created, where we can all be part of this together and create together again, and use kind of what we already had started with the new music playlist. Maybe kind of come up with a way as we move the show forward to make sure that the episodes each month still consist of maybe a new music moment or some songs that we found that we still want to share. But I think, Matt, what we need to do is take a deeper dive into the album anniversaries that we come
Yes.
along each month. We're looking at 25 years, 35 years, 40 years. I think there's a lot of stuff in there that we could still dig into and talk about, that people who had been listening and still, if you're with us, thank you, but bring people back to the show would really enjoy.
Yep, I completely agree. And I felt like at the beginning when we were doing this, we were constantly talking about moving away from, yeah, birthdays. Screw birthdays. We're done with birthdays. We're not even doing that in June. But we were even thinking about stepping away from the album anniversaries. But when it comes down to it, no, that's the thing that we actually kind of need to lean on, especially right now, 2024. You're talking 1984 is a terrific year. We should be on this show for June, not doing a June wrap up. We should be just dedicating an episode to Purple Rain.
No, that's Matt's
Oh, come
secret wish.
on, man.
Because that whole episode would just be Matt talking. So, Matt,
Yep.
go ahead, turn
Can
the
I
camera
mute
on when
you?
I'm done.
Can I mute?
Yeah. It will be kind of fun still, because there's going to be stuff right now that we go back to. Right, we're restricted to 1974. If we keep this to within our lifetime, we can't go back to 1969. We need to go from 1974 forward. But the good thing is that there's still such a plethora of music
Yeah,
to dive
deep well.
into, because every single month you're going to have another 25 years worth of albums that have been released, another 30 years, another. And I think the fun part is, by allowing it to be 25 years and back, we know 25 years ago starts in 1999. Look, we get it. This is going to make you feel old every time we tell you that, like Blink 182 Enema of the State came out 25 years ago. You're going to be like, no, it didn't. Yeah, it
Yeah,
did.
it did.
It did. But the good part about this is that it still gives us a chance to give a little bit of that side eye, because by 1999, by 2000, when some of this music comes along that we're going to have to still share and let the audience be part of with what we're doing, we're going to have to suck it up like we did with the audience choices at times, the songs we put on the playlist.
Yeah.
That not we respectfully disagreed with some of those songs, but that was their choice. They were part of the show, and it wound up there.
Yep.
And so I think what we need to do is, each month we will go through the albums that are celebrating these great, big, massive anniversaries. Matt is going to pick one album each month that he wants to talk about. I'm going to pick an album that I want to talk about, and the audience is going to vote on an album that we will talk about on the show. So they will pick an album, and then each of us will pick an album. We'll bring 3 albums celebrating anniversaries to the show, and it's up to them to decide. If we have to spend an episode talking about Bon Jovi after everything we just said about 10 or 15 minutes ago, that's what we have to
Hey,
do.
I listened to a whole Miley Cyrus album for you one week. I think I can handle Bon Jovi.
I think I can too. And it'll be fun to go back and listen to a single album once or twice, maybe, instead of,
Are
you
you
know,
kidding me? These album anniversary, recaps or whatever you want to call them. There's going to be fun. We got some hard and fast opinions over sometimes decades about
yes,
these
yes.
albums, right? So, we go on and on about just bleachers, right? Or the beaches. How's our opinion going to change about them in 20 years?
Oh, that's a great point. It'll be interesting to go and revisit that at some point when we're 70
Yeah. Yeah.
to
Yep.
see how we feel about it.
We can break some honesty too. It's like if we have fatigue with it, maybe our taste change or we find something that we were really excited about back in the day, or something that just kind of escaped us and it came to us later in life. Right. I mean, we'll never talk about the Doors on the show, but the Doors were a band that, and the Who, that didn't really come to me until I was well into my 20s.
Yeah, yeah, same here,
Right.
same here. Well, one of the cool things is we will still keep, like I said, I mentioned this a little bit earlier, uh, new music moments. So I think Matt and I, we discussed this, that we're still going to bring we're not going to say, hey, you get 5 songs, I get 5 songs. We're going to each just kind of bring up new music that we did find, because we do enjoy that part of the show a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But when we were discussing this the other night, we both talked about how we used to say, hey, you know what? I'd love to be one of those guys that listen to new music all the time and then wrote reviews about it.
Yeah. Well, if it was one album a week that we were trying to review, that wouldn't be so
Imagine being
bad.
one of those guys that gets sent 20 to listen to a week and then has to write up about 5 of them.
Oh, Sandy, I feel
Oh,
for
I
you.
wouldn't want to do that.
The main reason why we started doing the show was just to feel good,
Yes.
to have fun,
Yes.
right? We're not in this for anything else other than to just catch up with each other and enjoy music and have some passion to it. And that's not saying that any of the new stuff that we brought that we don't, you know, really like, but at the same time, as you said, we don't have the time to linger on those
And we
things.
will still keep, like I said, digging through new music. We'll still look for stuff. We'll look for things to come along that capture us. And we want to keep the Jam Yearbook Discovers New Music playlist going, but we want to bring the audience into building that playlist with us like we did the old one. And as we find new music, we want to engage the audience in our private Facebook group. It's only private so that we don't get trolled. So if you want to join it, come and join it. But the private Facebook group, we will put new songs up every single month that they can vote on to see if it wants to be added to the playlist. Now, it's up to them if they want to go listen or not. We do understand not everybody who's listening to this is going to go tune in the radio to new music, everything that's coming out, but we'll try to at least make sure that it's timely and relevant to be able to be on a new music playlist. But like we built that old one, we'll build a new one together. However, we'll keep the same flow of new music. And, every 3 to 4 months, I'll take off the music that was added previously back at, 3 to 4 months back, as we add new music and it keeps going. And so it can be kind of fun for the audience to be part of this ever changing dynamic playlist that can be what you want to listen to when you want to hear something new, but you've also had a part of creating.
And I think that's the most important part, is having this be a shared experience.
Yes.
Instead of us feeling like, Jim, you listen to this, Matt, you listen to this, audience, you listen to everything that we say. Because hey, we've talked about things just pass us by because we got these blinders on. We're listening to what we want to listen to. We're always missing something, or we're missing maybe not the music, but we're missing the relevance of it.
Yeah. So you know what? We need to wrap this up, and we need to just get on with it and come back with the show in June. Yeah, we're over explaining.
Like that.
We're over explaining now.
Yeah, we kind of are really over explaining. We realized essentially the bottom line is we weren't having as much fun as we used to.
And we're going to win you back no matter
Baby,
what.
come back. You can blame it all on Jim.
Yeah, it's my fault. It is actually. This is probably very true.
No, not at all. Not at all.
All right, everybody, I think it's my turn to wrap it up this week. So I am going to say very quickly, thank you for listening to the Jam Yearbook and all the episodes. If you've made it to this point, if you haven't and you happen to pick it up from this point and move forward, or you pick it up from the June wrap up and you come back and join us again, we're just always happy to have listeners along with us. Matt, what would you like to say to everybody before we go?
Thank you for tuning in, and we will see you back here in June when Jim and I get the stick out of our ass and we revamp this bullshit and go forward. Hey, and remember, that old playlist that we built together, that is still out there for people to listen to.
Just called the Jam Yearbook.
Have a good night, good day, good evening, whenever you're listening to us. Goodbye. We'll see you here next time.
Peace, love, and podcast.